Music business, making music your business, making money out of music. It's incredibly tough. Why so? Well, if you think about it, let me try and pitch it to you. I'm going to sell you something that is totally invisible. You can't taste it, you can't touch it, and you can't have it. What I'm going to do is move the air around your ears in a way that you find satisfying. And to seal the deal, I'm going to wear some tight trousers. And it's highly likely that I'm going to enjoy moving the air around a lot more than you having it moved around. It's a wonder we ever get paid at all. It's so incredibly difficult to earn money out of music. So much so, we don't even call it earnings. We don't even call it fees. We call them rights. The word rights implies something that is appropriate, deserved, but not necessarily guaranteed. Which job of mine would you say earned me the most money? A Warner Brothers Mandy Moore film that opened in 2,400 screens in the United States. A Belgian detective series called Poirot, which kind of travels well, they like it in Australia. Or a government public awareness film about carbon dioxide. Yes, it was the carbon dioxide film. It's not only a fantastically skewed system, it's fascinatingly complicated. So complicated that we kind of tight trouser air moving aroundy people can't really understand the system. So there's this group of kind of equally drunken individuals who police it for us. That's called the music industry. And its interest at the core is for it to remain as complicated as humanly possible so that the air movers don't understand it and require their services. I actually know very little about this system, which is why I'm handing over to my business partner, Paul Thomson.
So the different ways of earning money as a composer on kind of your average, let's say, film or TV job, are from the commissioning fee, the upfront kind of fee that you're paid to actually create the music and to orchestrate and all that kind of stuff, or realise it electronically, whatever the job entails. You've also got a kind of, on a lot of jobs, secondary usage, so you might get to get that music, have another life somewhere else. And you've got your kind of publishing income. So when the music plays out, let's say it plays out for the first time on terrestrial network TV, or it's out in cinemas. There are a couple of exceptions to this, which I'll go into in a minute. You'll get money from your local rights society. So in the UK here, it's PRS. In America, it might be ASCAP or BMI, CSAC. There's all these different societies around the world. So what tends to happen when you get offered let's say a TV job? So most of the time for a commercial broadcaster, or a network broadcaster, they will want to keep what's called the publisher's share. Now, this is described differently in different countries. So in the UK, we call it for some reason twelfths. So there are 6/12, or half of the total is given to the composer or composers of the works, and 6/12 is available to the publisher. Now, some publishers don't take that much, but on most TV work, most of them do, and they'll tend to have a publisher associated with them. Might be one of the big major publishing houses. It might be one of the big independent publishers as well. So this is slightly different if you're working here in the UK for the BBC. And I've done a couple of jobs with the BBC recently where BBC Worldwide have published it. But the big difference for me here is that BBC Worldwide, who I love, have offered me a really good publishing advance for their share of the publishing. So it's a completely different situation to a lot of the time when, you know, the publishing is just kind of accepted that you're going to lose that half of the publishing. That it's referred to by BASCA as coercive publishing. In other words, you kind of have to do the deal if you want the job. Now, this happens a lot on films as well, because film company will expect to publish the music that's in their films. Sometimes on jobs I've been able to negotiate to split the publishing 50-50. So I have my own small publishing company and I've been able to retain a share in the publishing. Sometimes if you're working under work for hire, which is quite common in America, you will have to have your composer's royalties granted back to you. That sometimes is done via the contract. So that's something also to be aware of, to ensure that you are going to get the composer's royalties. It's a bit of a kind of grey area all over. Now, when you're working for, let's say you're doing a video game or you're doing a show for Netflix or something like that, there aren't any performance royalties. I'll qualify that. There are almost no circumstances under which, with normal use, you would get performance royalties. There are a couple of very technical kind of situations where you would get a little bit, but most of the time, for the general play out, unlike on network TV, unlike on, in cinemas around the world, I know that that's different in America as well, but for cinema performances around the world, those generate performance royalties. So they generally pay you more up front. So you'd expect to get a higher fee for a video game or for a Netflix show than you would for a show where you're going to get a back end kind of cut. There are also mechanical royalties, and these are sometimes tied up with, so MCPS, the Mechanical Copyright Protection Society in the UK, became part of our Performing Rights Society, PRS. So it's one organisation now that pays out on both rights. And in America, you've got the Harry Fox Agency and a couple of other organisations. But mechanical copyright is generated when a physical copy is made. So we used to call it when the music is dubbed onto the programme, that generated a mechanical royalty. And there are a couple of other, there's obvious things like DVD sales. When you're working with the BBC, I've always got DVD royalties. I know that sometimes with ITV or some of the more commercial broadcasters, you don't get mechanical royalties from sales of those things, but you can also, under certain circumstances, get a mechanical royalty generated when a programme is broadcast on some broadcasters. That's too much detail to go into now, but it's worth looking into. And I say it's worth looking into, and you might think, well, who would be the person who would look into that for me? Well, it might be your agent, or your lawyer. And I've had to give advice to people over the years about who've asked me about agents, my experience of agents, and what is typical to expect from a relationship with an agent. I would say the only agent I've ever had, and they've represented me a couple of times over the years, is Airedale, run by the wonderful Maggie Rodford. And I had a great experience with them. They're very, very diligent and honest. So people have approached me with different kind of models. And one of the models is that the agent offers you an exclusive songwriting agreement. Now, personally, I don't see why your publishing should be up for grabs with the person who's representing you. This is slightly different in the commercials territory. So when you do commercials, if the ad agency doesn't have its own publisher, which is becoming more common, then there might be some publisher's share up for grabs. And under those circumstances, if your agent has operated as a music production company, then I kind of think that that's fair enough for them to take a share of the publishing. Firstly, there's a technical problem here. So if you sign what's called an ESA, so an exclusive songwriting agreement with your agent as the publisher, there is an immediate problem in that technically you are not allowed now to do jobs for films or TV shows where they want to publish the music, because you are legally obliged to that everything that you write belongs to your agent. Now they can give you kind of get out clauses, so they can say when the publishing is available, they'll take it. But I kind of think that I think there's a good, honest living to be earned as an agent by taking commission of the work that you get for your clients, and it's a cooperative thing. So your agent is working across the board for you to try and get work in for you. And I think it's fair that if you then bring in a job, when you're in a relationship with an agent, that you pay them commission on that, because it becomes very difficult to unpick who is responsible for what commission. If you then go off and write, let's say you write an album of music or something like that, I don't think that should necessarily immediately go to your agent, the publishing on that. It just doesn't seem right to me. So that's one thing that I would generally advise is to be very, very careful about signing an ESA. These are things that used to go hand in hand with the big record companies and the big publishers. So if you got a big record deal with Warner Brothers, then you would sign with the publishing arm, and that would be an ESA. So all of your songs that you wrote would go into that deal, and that was a kind of enveloping deal that you would go into, and that's kind of fair enough, because if they're giving you a publishing advance and doing all of that work, then I think that they need to see a return on their investment. But it becomes very odd when the publishing is not taken by the broadcaster, let's say, or the film company, but it's taken by the person who commissioned the work. That seems a bit odd to me. So that's my kind of initial thoughts about the business element of the industry that I've come across so far and how it works for me. It'd be really interesting to see how Christian views these things and what his experience is, because he has a different experience to me, although he has also been with Airedale as well. So over to you, Christian.
I guess at the heart of any transaction is the ability to fulfill a need. I don't have very much money and you do, but you don't have very much time and you're thirsty. I do have time and I've made this nice drink for you. Can we come to some kind of agreement where we feel the transaction is equal? And this is where earning money out of music is difficult. It's not always welcome, it's not always wanted. And I do feel at the heart of the future and the possibilities we currently face as musicians is to try and diversify, try and kind of locate a need and cater to that. And if that facilitates you enjoying yourself making music and creating art, then we're so much the better off for it. I think a brilliant example of this is YouTube, which I feel certainly over the last 2 years has been cited within the music industry as our biggest existential threat. For me, I do believe we should retain our rights. I do believe people shouldn't steal and exploit our music without paying us. But I do fundamentally sense that people misunderstand the YouTube business model. It is simply a promotional tool. What does YouTube do for us? Well, YouTube provides us with an amazing search algorithm and a database of information. If you need to fix your, old Roberts radio, the likelihood is you'll be able to find the solution on YouTube. YouTube makes money by putting adverts on these films. The creator who has made the Roberts radio video is encouraged to allow YouTube to put these adverts on their films, because YouTube gives that creator a tiny cut of the ad revenue. Conversely, because the Roberts radio video maker has allowed YouTube to put adverts on their film, YouTube then has an interest to promote that film to as many people as humanly possible. And if that Roberts radio video creator is intelligent, they will use that promotional opportunity to sell something else to the person who's viewing the radio. Chances are that person is probably quite interested and is into Roberts radios. The music industry largely doesn't perceive YouTube to be of that model, but that's exactly what it is. It's a promotional tool. The people who have made millions out of YouTube are not making it direct from YouTube. They're making it out of selling t-shirts. I mean, you look at someone like Philip DeFranco, who does a daily news show. He has about 20 staff, very skilled technicians that work for him. He doesn't make his money out of advertising revenue. He makes it out of selling t-shirts and out of Patreon. And if you were to ask me, if I was to start out in the music industry, how would I go about earning a living out of it? Well, form a band with a bunch of your mates with the intention of being bigger than Coldplay. Then film absolutely every part of the process, warts and all, the arguments, all of that kind of stuff, and put it on YouTube. Create some merchandise which you can sell through that YouTube channel. The chances are you will not become bigger than Coldplay. The chances are you will fail. One of your band members will sleep with one of your girlfriends or boyfriends, and you'll fall to pieces in a kind of massive drunken brawling. You want to make music with your friends. People want to see you fail. You sell them t-shirts whilst they're watching you fail. That's the transaction. It sounds like a miserable way to earn a living, but this diversification is what is key to success in the music industry, in my humble opinion. The really successful air movers are the people who understand that moving air in front of people's ears is a means of selling them t-shirts, of getting bums on seats and going around the world touring. I hope this video has been helpful. If you like what we do, hit like. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, there's loads more kind of waffling advice about the music industry. And if you want to be notified the next time we put a video up, just hit the little bell icon. See you next time.